The annual Fancy Farm Picnic will take place this Saturday. It started out as a church picnic at St. Jerome's Parish in Graves County, which is located in far west Kentucky. Now, it evolved into a must-stop political event for candidates in 1931, when then candidate for lieutenant governor Happy Chandler gave a speech. And ever since then, it has been considered a must-stop for both political candidates and political leaders in Kentucky. Fancy Farm also, by the way, made the Guinness Book of World Record for barbecue. And by the way, it's really good barbecue. I recommend it. Now, joining us to talk further about Fancy Farm and also sharing some political observations is Mike Harmon, former two-term state auditor and colleague here at the Commonwealth Policy Center. Mike, it's good to have you.
Glad to be here. You know, that 1931, that was a little before my time, even though
a couple years? Just a couple
years.
Now, I wanted you on the program because Fancy Farm has been a political fixture for years. And you bring a special perspective in that you have been on the stage a number of times.
Eight total
times.
Yeah, would have been 9, except for COVID.
Okay, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
It's up there.
Love it. Just love it.
Now, you're coming at it from a political leader, both a candidate and somebody who served in office.
Correct.
I'm coming at it from a guy who's attended for years. I've been going off and on for the better part of 25 years. And I look at the climate, which I mean, literally, it's hot and it's humid. There's often a thunderstorm, but then also the political climate is pretty vicious.
Well, you're talking about the hot and humid. You know, when I first, in 2015, when I ran for auditor, my consultant said, be sure to drink lots of water. So before the speech, I went to the local McDonald's and drank 7 iced waters when their large was really large, you know, before it's the medium now.
And you probably sweat. That's one thing, is you want to wear light clothes because it is hot and it's muggy. A little warmer there in that part of the state than it is here in the Frankfort area.
Exactly.
But Mike, I want you to help those who are tuned into the program get an understanding of what is it like being on the stage. I've been out in the audience, as I mentioned, and there's hooting and there's hollering and there's heckling, and it's just bedlam at times. If somebody says something that's inflammatory or something controversial, the crowd erupts. Here's the question: how do you keep your cool? I mean, your demeanor.
Well, you know, the first year that I did it, I wrote my speech out. I worked on it. I memorized it. I said it so many times. My youngest daughter was driving me, so she probably could have given the speech as many times. And then when it came time right before I was going to speak, or a few speakers beforehand, Senator McConnell walks up to the stage and pulls out this crumpled piece of paper and gives his speech off the piece of paper. So I thought, well, if Senator McConnell can do it, I can do it. So I walked up with my cards, and you look at me. You just got to stay focused, because the key is it's 2. You really can't win Fancy Farm, but you got to try not to lose it, and you got to focus on the crowd and not let them bother. Now, one year they didn't have a time limit for us. They said try to keep them here, but we had so many people up here. That was probably my favorite year, because that year I was able to interact with the crowd. Prior to that, you just focus on your speech, you focus on looking out over the audience, and you make sure that you try not to stumble in your speech.
So just to cue this up for those who are, again, tuning in to get a picture of what this is like, you're on a big stage that's covered. You're looking out at the audience, and on to your left are the Republicans. You got the Republican side.
Stage, the left Republicans.
And you got Democrats on the opposite side.
You got booing or cheering, depending on which speaker is up there.
Yeah, and how do you, when you hear, now, if I heard you correctly in a private conversation, you don't really hear the audience.
You don't,
very much.
I mean, when you don't hear the speaker, like if you're sitting on stage and you're not the speaker at that time, you don't really hear them so you got to focus because the microphone's picking it up to broadcast, whether it's KET or some of the other TV stations. But to give you an idea of how I prepared for it the first time, my consultant, in addition to telling me to drink lots of water, he came over to our house. He had my wife and my mom take pots and pans and bang it real loud. And he played extremely loud music while I gave the speech. When I gave that speech, I realized that it was way too long. So then I had to cut it and edit it down.
Good practice.
It is great practice. Good. But encourage if anybody's going to be on the stage to do something like that.
Yeah. It's unnerving just for me to be in the audience and watching it. Again, it's just commotion and pandemonium and the hooting. And
people are terrified of it. I loved it. I kind of draw energy off of it.
I tell a story when I took my two youngest daughters there years ago. They were in middle school, and we had some barbecue and had a nice lunch, and we played some of the games and actually won a prize at one of the games. And we went to watch a speaking, and it was something, it was kind of mild at first. And then a little ways into it, there's a guy right next to us that just out of nowhere just started yelling something like, "You're a liar," about the opponent who was speaking. And I don't know. I don't remember who it was. All I remember is that we all were alarmed at that. And my girls just looked at me like, the look in their eye was like, "Dad, what did you bring us to? What is this?" Now, some people, as you said, really, they enjoy that and thrive on it. And for me, it's work. I'm there to see what the politicians are saying, and to to connect with people and whatnot. You mentioned the music. Now there is a lot of time,
and it varies.
And if you go over your time, then the music starts playing. It will drown you out.
Exactly.
Another unnerving part of Fancy Farm.
And that's why when you write your speech, you should always write your speech about 15 seconds less than what the music, only because even if you give yourself a 15-second buffer, you're usually right up against it, because with the crowd hollering and things like that, it's just too easy to go over.
Good advice. So if anybody's tuned in and ever invited to Fancy Farm, this is the guy right here, Mike Harmon. You need to talk to him about how to prepare for that and to get tips. Now, Mike, there are 13 confirmed speakers. You'll have candidates from that area: Graves County State Senator Jason Howell, State Representative Kim Holloway, U.S. Senator Rand Paul has confirmed, Andy Barr, the Republican running for the open U.S. Senate seat being vacated by Mitch McConnell, Charles Booker, the Democratic candidate running for U.S. Senator, Congressman James Comer,
who's from that area, represents that area.
He represents all the Purchase area and into the Pennyrile and elsewhere. Drew Williams, the Democratic challenger to James Comer, Lieutenant Governor Jackie Coleman, Rocky Adkins, the Democrat running for governor, Attorney General Russell Coleman, Treasurer Mark Metcalf, Allison Ball, our auditor, your former position, and then Ag Commissioner Jonathan Schell. I named all of those because it's dominated by Republicans.
Did you mention Michael Adams? I think we may have missed Michael. He just confirmed.
He just confirmed. So this is the latest list. Thank you.
Yes.
So Michael Adams, Secretary of State.
Yes.
Very good. So I believe that's 14 total. Out of that 14, 11 are Republicans.
Yes.
Or maybe it's 10. 10 out of the 14. There's 2 Democrats that appeared to have confirmed: congressional candidate Senator Booker for the U.S. Senate candidate Charles Booker, and then the 2 Democratic gubernatorial candidates.
Yes.
So here's where I'm going with that. This used to be a Democratic-dominated event.
Very much so.
Far West Kentucky was considered the Rock of Gibraltar for the Democratic Party.
Oh, definitely.
And now it's a Republican-dominated event. It's probably been this way for a decade or more.
When I first started, that's probably true. When I first started in 2015, it was kind of even. It was kind of like half and half. I mean, it wasn't dominated by Democrats, but it was about half and half. Because, when I spoke, you had Jack Conway that was running for governor and previous attorney general. Of course, you had myself running against Adam Elan, who also spoke. So there were multiple Democrats on the stage at that time.
Why the change? What's your assessment? Why has it become more Republicans than in the past, before 2015, or maybe going back before the 2010s? Well, I would say it was dominated by Democrats.
Very reflective of the state. I mean, you look at the state currently, you've got 5 of the 6 of our congressmen are Republicans. Both our current senators are Republicans. All the constitutional officers except for the governor, lieutenant governor, are Republicans. You've got 80. I think it's 80 out of 100 of the state House that's Republicans, 32 out of 38 of the state Senate's Republicans.
Yeah.
So it's just a Republican-dominated state. There are still, lingering. Obviously, Governor Beshear has been elected twice.
It's going to get to that.
Yes.
So he's notably missing from the lineup.
Yeah.
He's in his 7th year
Yeah.
of being governor. He's only shown up once at Fancy Farm, and that was in 2023 when he was on the ballot for a second term to be reelected as governor. What does that say to, I guess, statewide candidates that a sitting governor, only has to show up once?
Well, that was as a
out of
sitting
7
governor.
years.
He did come to some of the Fancy Farms when he was AG and running for AG, because we had the year that I was either running for governor or right before I ran for governor. Part of my routine, I used to do a routine. You might be a liberal Democrat. Well, that year I did. You might be a Democrat looking to run for governor. And he happened to be there, and I think there was a lot of cheers at that time. Not for me, of course. But
So there are critics, Mike, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but critics saying that Governor Andy Beshear is traveling the country, speaking to Democratic events all over.
Right.
Of course, he's positioning himself to run for president in 2028.
He's hopeful of that, yes.
Isn't there a contradiction? He's speaking across the country, but he is not coming to Fancy Farm.
Well, obviously he's won Kentucky twice, but I think it would be questionable whether he would win Kentucky if he was running for president as opposed to governor. Certainly he has high hopes, and I guess he's the head of the Democratic Governors Association, so he's using that kind of as a platform, to advance himself. But in any of the polls you see, he's still only about 2%. He's got a tough challenge if he's going to run for president because he tries to portray himself as a moderate to Kentuckians. But at the same time, generally, the people that are getting the press nationally are more leaning liberal.
Yeah, no, those are good points. Well taken. You've got to get through that Democratic primary in order to become president.
Yes.
And the Democratic primaries really
are. In the last couple of times, maybe not, because the person that wins the Democratic primary doesn't get it, and they just take them out and appoint somebody else. So maybe he's buying.
Yeah, I see what you're referring to. Right. When Joe Biden dropped out and Kamala Harris filled the gap without actually having a primary, which irony for the Democratic Party to actually put forth a candidate without Democratic voters actually voting for that nominee.
With the
Okay. Well, I could comment on that. We won't go down that rabbit hole because we end up in a different place here. But let's talk about, first of all, any final thoughts on Fancy Farm? What are you looking for this year? Do you expect any major announcements for governor on the Republican side? Democrats have already made their two very capable candidates on the Democratic side. Well, how about on the Republican side?
Well, I think there will be a lot of additional hinting about Congressman Comer. I mean, he's already made it known that that's probably going to be his intention. He can't come right out and definitely make a definitive statement because I think there's some challenges with him maintaining his chairmanship. But my understanding, come December, we may hear, more definitive. And then, of course, there is, I guess, the possibility, there's some rumors that, our current Secretary of State, Michael Adams, may make an announcement that he is or is not, running for governor, or he may not mention it at all. So there is some hints. Other than those two, I don't know that there is anybody else on the Republican side that will be at Fancy Farm that would make that notification.
I have been talking with politically interested conservatives across the state, and people have asked me frequently who is going to run for the Republican governor. Comer, as you mentioned, is probably the hands-on favorite. He had desires several years ago to run, came up a little short in the primary.
83 votes.
That's very, very close primary. Michael Adams has talked about it, but I have a gut feeling that a business conservative could come forward to run and make it a competitive primary.
Potentially.
You may have somebody on the Liberty side, the Liberty wing of the Republican Party to run. So we'll see. There's one thing I see is there's a general frustration over politics as usual. If you have been in office a long time, there's a negative sentiment towards that. Definitely. We saw it in the primary where 18 sitting judge executives lost their seats. Yeah. That's a very, very high number. And that's
very, very unusual because usually there's no guarantee, but if you're the incumbent, it definitely provides a strong defense against not winning re-election. So to have 18 of those, that was extremely uncommon.
Yeah. So midterm elections, let's move over to that.
Yes.
And I want to segue between James Comer, first district congressman. He's been there for almost 10 years, and he chairs the House Oversight Committee, very powerful committee.
Very much so.
He's been a fixture on the cable news channels.
Yeah. And actually, I served with him in the House before he went on to be ag commissioner.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, very capable candidate. Do you think that the midterms, whether Republicans win or lose, will have an impact on him in announcing for governor, possibly announcing?
I don't, at this point, I don't think so. I mean, I think he's already made the decision that he plans to run. But I guess, maybe there could be some differences, but I think he's already made that decision. Certainly, it might expedite it a little bit if in the midterms, the Republicans lost the House. But I think he's fairly confident that's what he wants to do. It hurt him greatly, I think, when he lost by 83 votes. We were talking about it earlier, that was under a different scenario than what we have now. Back then, you had to pick your lieutenant governor prior to filing. Now you can run as a governor candidate without picking lieutenant governor until after the primary. So it's changed a little bit there.
Yeah. Of course, in 2015, the primary you're referring to, there were two business candidates. I use that term loosely, but successful businessmen who ran for office. Hal Heiner was one.
Right.
Matt Bevin was the other. Right. And Matt Bevin was the one who won.
Yeah.
That.
And then you had, of course, Comer came in second. And you also had, I think it was Will T. Scott, Judge Will.
That's correct.
Scott, which I was on the trail there because obviously I was running for auditor at that time. And we had some wonderful stories. Most of us could probably give any of the candidates speech because we had heard him. But Will T. was probably the least we would be able to give the speech because he was always coming up with something new and exciting. So.
Yeah, former Supreme Court justice here in Kentucky.
Yes.
Let's look at the polling for the midterm elections.
Sure.
Mike, we are less than 100 days out from the November 3rd midterm election. Are you familiar with any polling out there as far as Republicans holding the House and holding the Senate? What are you saying?
If you had asked me a month or so ago, nationally, the polling probably had it leaning more towards the Democrats taking over the House and it being a wash in the Senate, an opportunity to go one way or the other. With some of the stuff that's going on with the Democratic Socialist taking over some of them and some of the things that they put forth that they would like to eventually see. I think right now it's probably dead even. So it could be a coin flip and that. Now, obviously in Kentucky, the races that we have in Kentucky, last poll I saw, Andy Barr was probably up by about 11 over Charles Booker. And the only other one that might be in question is the 6th Congressional District. And that one, Ralph Alvarado, who is running to replace Andy Barr, who's running for the Senate, he was up 3 in the last poll that I saw over his opponent there. Now, obviously, in the 3rd Congressional District, unless something dramatic changes, that one should remain Democrat, although there is a fairly strong Republican running in that area. It's just the registration and everything makes it a little difficult.
So just to clarify, the 3rd Congressional District is Louisville.
Yes.
Morgan McGarvey is in office there.
Currently, yes.
He's been there for a couple terms now.
Yes.
And there is a dynamic young Hispanic woman who is running as a Republican.
From Cuba, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
There is a Cuban population there in Louisville. I've met a couple of them. 1 or 2 of them attended our candidate training that we held last fall. And they've got a very fascinating story. And I think it's worth mentioning something about that, where we brought up Democratic Socialists just a little while ago. And there's promise, free things. we're gonna forgive your student loan debt. Or in New York City, they've got a city-owned grocery store, and we're gonna have rent controls.
Working on. They don't have it quite yet, but they're working on it. Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying. But they're promising all kinds of things to people, and I understand why, because it's we've had inflation. Young people are struggling to find that first job. They're struggling with the burden of student loan debt. I get that. But one of the ironies I see is you have a certain branch of Democrats promising all these things. And then you have people lining up on our southern border to get in here. They're fleeing from those very same policies that these certain Democrats are promising today. We're going to have more. We're going to give you things, right? Essentially, that's it.
Well, that's the bait. But when you see what the hook is, once they get you hooked, they want to eliminate the Senate, federal Senate. They want to eliminate the presidency as we know it. They want to eliminate the Supreme Court. They basically want, just a Congress, just a representative type government where they can push things through very quickly.
A direct democracy.
A direct democracy, yeah.
So when you say eliminate the presidency, are you talking about the Electoral College? Because there's been criticism of that. Hillary Clinton?
Been some talk about both. Eliminating, one of the ladies that was represented, the Democrat Socialist, she was wanting to actually eliminate the presidency as we know it. Not just the Electoral College, but the presidency as we know it, the Senate as we know it.
I think that would be a tough sell to the American people.
I think it would be a tough sell to the American people. Because whether you love them or you don't love them, most people want to maintain, a presidential type of scenario. They may not be in favor of the Electoral College, although I still am, because it provides that balance and it helps protect the little states, the states that don't have as much population. Same thing with the Senate. The Senate was set up originally to protect the smaller states from being dominated by the larger states.
That's right. That's right. The founding fathers, in their wisdom, put together that mechanism so that states would not be left out of important conversations, and a mechanism that allowed larger states to have a greater say when it came to the House of Representatives.
Exactly.
Mike, just looking at this from, you've been in politics for over 30 years here in Kentucky, and looking
Are you
at...
saying I'm old, Richard?
I'm saying you're seasoned. You're seasoned. Okay. But looking at this, what's happening in the Democratic Party with the Democratic Socialists really going hard left socialism. One person who won a primary in New York City, one of Mamdani's lieutenants, if you will, or somebody he endorsed, said years ago that she wanted to bring down Western civilization.
Right.
And you have statements like that, a radical reordering, like we were just talking about, having more of a direct democracy and removing some of the constitutional safeguards. Do you think, looking at it from the political equation, calculus, do you think that those Democratic leaders, the mainline leaders, see that as a hindrance, or is that the future of the Democratic Party?
I think certainly there are some in the leadership of the Democrat Party that are greatly concerned because not only are they... It's kind of like some of the other aspects, but more radical that we've seen even on the flip side, where like the mainline party wants the votes, wants the momentum of a particular movement, in this case, the Democrat Socialist movement, but they don't want themselves to be knocked out. And what you're seeing is the Democrat Socialists are actually knocking out the mainline Democrats who've been there for a long time, who've represented those causes for a long time. So I think there is some concern, but I think they also like the momentum and they want to do anything they can to obtain the power.
Do you think that this drives the more blue-collar Democrats who are conservative in other areas? Do you think it drives them to the Republican side or the independent side?
Well, I think you've already seen it. I mean, Trump, the last time, was as much populist as anything, and he drew more of the mainline, blue collar workers because he understands their needs more so than even the Democrat Socialists. I mean, they're talking about issues that the average guy that gets up and goes to work and the lady that gets up and goes to work and just tries to feed their family, they're not interested in a lot of the stuff that the socialists are talking about, but they might be interested in making sure that they can afford their health care. They might be interested in making sure they can put food on the table, but they're not interested in all the other crazy stuff that they're talking about.
To your point, Donald Trump spoke in Michigan to a rally in Detroit, and it was interesting. He gave the platform over to a union leader who came up, and I think he just spoke off the cuff. Right. But he said that Donald Trump was the one who was protecting the auto industry from cheap steel being sent over here, keeping the market strong here, keeping the workers first and foremost in mind.
Well, he was trying to protect against not only cheap steel, but steel from other countries that have been subsidized.
That's right.
And then dump in our market to try to destroy our market so then they could raise all the steel prices at a later time once our market was destroyed.
And now that person who spoke may have been a Democrat. I'm not sure what their party affiliation was, but typically union support aligned with Democrats. And
typically
with Trump's both of his elections, he splintered off some of that union support.
Yeah.
And Mike, do you have any other observations about the upcoming election? We're just about out of time. About the midterm elections and then maybe the governor's race.
I think certainly the midterms we have to watch. I think from a standpoint of Kentucky, other than the 6th congressional district, I think most of them, you can't take it for granted, but I think most of those are okay. We just got to be very aggressive in the 6th congressional district to make sure that remains in the Republican hands. Or hopefully conservative hands. But, from the standpoint of the governor's race, that will be interesting because, you've had some of the ones, obviously we talked about Congressman Comer but there had been some rumors that maybe Senate President Robert Stivers was going to run, but he announced, I guess it was 2 or 3 days ago, that he was not going to run. We'll find out more about whether Michael Adams will run. Although I think Michael, may struggle in a primary, obviously, against Congressman Comer. And like you said, there may be people other than those individuals that we've mentioned have surprise candidates. So we'll see.
As far as going back to the midterm, and this is my last thought, according to the poly markets, now these are trading markets where people place bets and they make predictions. Right. And if their prediction is correct, then they win. So it's kind of like betting against the house. But according to the poly markets, Democrats are projected to win the U.S. House of Representatives 86%. Republicans are projected to keep the Senate 56%. Now, keep in mind, it's just people betting on it. These numbers change over time as we get closer to the election.
We mean just like when Trump, the poly markets had Hillary Clinton winning with like 90-some%.
And then the day of the election, as returns were coming in, then they started changing, right?
Yeah.
Because I guess people can bet the day of, at least in that case, the markets were changing. So if that's any indication, and in many cases, they are accurate.
Yeah.
You pointed out one where they were grossly inaccurate.
Yes.
But they, in recent years, they've been fairly accurate. So something to keep an eye on.
And the sad thing is, good or bad, only a handful of races, both in the House and the Senate, will make because so many of them are already predetermined.
Mike, it has been great to have you on the Commonwealth Matters. I look forward to being at Fancy Farm with you this weekend.
Very excited to see
several of the pre-events, and then, of course, meeting some of the candidates as well. So looking forward to it.
Same here.